Why do we fail in relationships despite our best effort? This is the Love Secrets podcast, where we talk about what we wish we knew about love. I'm relationship therapist and coach, Sanya Bari, and this is my sister, my confidant, and my partner in crime, Rabia.
Hi, everyone.
We are talking about relationship myths that spoil relationships. And today's myth is if you love me, you'll change. And when somebody is saying that, what they're saying is that if you don't change, I'm not going to feel loved. That you don't really love me.
But Sanya, what if someone absolutely requires a change in behavior, like their behavior is totally despicable? Then what happens?
Yeah, you're right, because if you're living together, there are going to be times when you're going to request that, this is not acceptable. There could be little situations like, doing errands and housekeeping issues, but there could be big situations like you better not drink like this. You better not, cheat on me and things like that. So I do understand, that people do need to request that change,
Mhm.
and that is important. But that's all you can do. You can request whatever you want, and you have to believe in that right that you request whatever you want. But then you equally have to believe in the right of the other person to be able to say no to you. We don't have control over anyone but ourselves. So the only person we truly can change is ourselves. When we start to manage the change of someone, what we can fall into is control. And control is called the master illusion for good reason. The promise of control is that when you engage in me, when you do control, that you're going to feel good. But when you get there, it's like a Rumpelstiltskin deal. It turns out that they want you to do more and more. The other problem with control is that when you get into control, you've suddenly made this invisible contract that you're the one who's going to manage that, who's going to watch over that. And that's an employment in and of itself. The other problem, the sadness of doing all this work is that when you control someone, right at that moment, you are letting them know that you don't know how to do this. And I know how to do this better. And so you are taking this on. As you keep on going into the control and engaging in it, you are making that person feel less and less capable of being able to manage what you are managing for them. And you are simultaneously signing on for more and more responsibility of being the manager of that. What happens is that this person now becomes less and less capable of being able to do themselves. They're more dependent on you, and it doesn't ultimately work because it just becomes too much.
Yeah. So,
That's
but
yeah.
but then, Sanya, how would uh, you go around changing someone who absolutely needs that behavior change? Say, for example, you want the kids to be picked up, someone who has a substance abuse problem, they need to stop for their own betterment, for the family, so how do you make sure that the change happens?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. What if you really, really need that person to change? It is just the way the world works that we really don't have control over anybody else but ourselves. And so we cannot really change anybody else but ourselves. Whatever happens after that, after you've made your request, what you cannot do is you can't manage that. Suppose because you forced them to, you made them, you shamed them into, you guilted them into doing something, and they actually stopped the drinking for a little bit. I'm telling you that these things don't last. They maybe stopped cheating on you if that's what your request was. Maybe they picked up the kids on time, whatever your request. They did it for a little period of time,
Mhm.
but it's not going to ultimately work because it's not coming from them. And the problem with this also is that if suppose they do it the one time, even if they do it the one time, you know in your heart of hearts that the only reason they're doing it is because you are making them do it.
Mhm.
You know that it came that way, that it didn't come from them. So it's just not lasting control. And if the drinking is hurting you, if picking kids not on time is hurting you, if the betrayal is hurting you, guess what's going to hurt you more? When you put all of your hopes into it and you have this illusion that this person is changing and they actually don't. It's almost like, death by paper cuts. Or Groundhog's Day, you live it over and over again, and you get hurt over and over again. So true change doesn't happen because of control, which is really a manipulation.
So, Sanya, how do you help yourself in this situation?
So I guess what you're asking me is, what is it that'll actually make
Yeah.
somebody change? People change all the time. People ask me questions like, hey, is my husband ever going to stop cheating on me? Or is it once a cheater, always a cheater? I even hear things like, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. That's a very popular one. So you hear like all of these things, and and I have so many people that are even in their 40s, they're like, I'm 44 years old, I don't think I can change. But the truth of the matter is, people change. People change all the time. They can change at any age and stage in their life, but people don't change because you manipulated them, requested them, begged them, made them feel guilty. They will change when they want to change for themselves, with their own efforts, so by themselves. So as an example, because one of my specialties is infidelity, I see that a lot in my office. And so a lot of times the person who's betrayed is creating a situation, a scenario where they feel that their job now has become to keep that fire churning, that fire of guilt churning, that don't you forget, I'm never going to let you forget this. And I'm not saying what's right and wrong. This is not about judgment, but this is about, what do you want? Do you want to feel peaceful? Do you want to be with this person? Or do you want to repair the marriage or heal your heart? Then that would be the absolute wrong way to go. Because if this is what I really want to say here, is that if suppose her husband changes and stops cheating or stops drinking or starts picking up the kids because of any of the four manipulators, which I will talk about in a minute, any way, and because of any control that she's employed, it's just not going to last. So somebody might say to me, Rabia, that that's not true. I stopped cheating because of my wife, because I didn't want to hurt her. But what I'll tell you, that if it truly, truly worked, the way it works is that I selfishly, for myself, want to be with this woman, with my wife, with my kids, within my family, in this situation that I've created so badly. I want it for myself, not for any other reason, that I'm going to change. So you're saying that, what can that person who really needs this change to happen in the family, what can they do on their end? So like we said, you don't have control over anyone else but yourself. So
Mhm.
what you can do is that you need to take the focus off of the other person and put it on yourself. Because one of the things that control will do is that it will put an enormous amount of focus on the other person, and that doesn't really even leave any room for you to look into yourself. Imagine that there's a limited reservoir of energy and attention, And if you're employing all of that on the other person, you can employ it on yourself. So, so people will ask me, so what do you want us to do? Okay, the focus is on me. What do you want me to do? The focus in that moment when you are shining the light or the beam of the scanning beam of your awareness, not on the outside, but the inside of you, you want to ask yourself at every given moment, what am I feeling? What am I thinking? What do I want? What do I need? And to systematically work to provide that to yourself.
So, Sanya, how does that help the person with that situation?
Okay, so I understand, because you're saying that, even though you're shining the light of awareness inside, but how is the situations really not changing? So what I'm saying is that it's not so much as that it doesn't help, that it helps the situation by changing the focus onto yourself, but it's that it doesn't make the situation worse. Let's take a real problem like drinking, like infidelity. If suppose you don't change the focus of to yourself, you will realize that you will start losing control of yourself. Your entire existence is going to can very, very easily fall into the management and the observation and the management of that person's issue. Your life will become about the issue. And the biggest fear or biggest problem that can occur at that juncture is that it can take over your life in a way that when you need to really, really know your reality, know what's happening, your entire focus will start moving, becoming less and less. And you will start because your existence is becoming about that person. So simultaneously, you're losing yourself to the problem, and the problem just gets greater and greater. And so who am I? Why did I come up with this, that the problem is going to get greater and greater? Because if you're going to keep on your focused attention on that thing and on that problem, then it's almost like the pursuer retreater dynamic, which is that the more you give attention to it, to that person, that change this behavior, the more this person is going to feel pressurized, and they're going to want to run away from it. And that's just, this whole thing is really just anxiety based. The more you put pressure on me, the more I want to run away with it or figure out a better way to do it, because I
And
really don't want to change.
that makes it even worse.
And that keeps it worse. And it gets into this extremely vicious cycle, which has a lot of power in it, that, you're running away because away or towards the problem, and secretly doing it now, hiding it from me. And the more you do that, the more you're going to, I'm going to want to control you. But the more I'm controlling you, the more you're doing it. Like, when does that end? It just creates that thing. But I think the biggest loss that I want to mention here that happens is that breaking of the individual who's already experiencing the pain of this problem. And the only way that you can have a real problem like this and not lose yourself to it is to continue the development and the evolution of yourself by keeping the focus on you. Can you see how this can completely destroy someone, Rabia?
Yeah, completely it over. Yeah.
I mean, and I have seen that. I've seen when I have needed to control people to make things happen. I've seen that happen in my life. I see that every day in the lives of the people that I serve. I mean, do you also see how absolutely possible and how absolutely easy it is for people to fall into that?
Yes, yeah, definitely. And the follower retriever cycle that you were talking about,
Yeah.
I have seen that in many situations.
Yeah,
That's
the
correct.
pursuer retreater dynamic it's like a real thing. And when I talk about that dynamic, it's literally like emotional physics. It's like a seesaw. It literally works like, if you're gonna put pressure here, this is gonna go up. just this, you just can't,
We
mess with
said
that.
that we see that with our kids too.
Yes,
I
we
think works the very apparent on teenagers.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I can give you my example that, with my firstborn, that's the kid you mess up the most, unfortunately. The more I pushed my son to study because, he just wouldn't focus on his studies, the more he figured out ways to get away from me, to the point where I pushed him so much. I was even thinking of quitting grad school at that point. I was like, forget it. My son needs to be. And when I couldn't do anymore. Let's be very honest that at that moment, I was still studying, I was still understanding this, so I didn't know all this. At that moment, the only reason I did give up is because I couldn't go on anymore. So I did exhaust myself. But here's the magic, that when I did move myself, and let me tell you, it was a slow process.
Mhm.
I'll talk about the process in a second. My son started to do so well. He
Mhm.
started to have internal motivation. And now he's doing so great that he's doing pre-med now. Who thought? I just had kind of, told myself that, okay, I think I have to let this kid go. I don't know.
Yeah, and
I
he
just
is doing really well.
yeah.
Yes.
So but probably because I took my pressure off of him. So,
Yeah,
and actually let him do for himself.
that's true. That's great insight. Thank you, Sanya.
So this is what we have for you today, guys. And thank you for being with us. Subscribe to our podcast, because you deserve a beautiful relationship. We'd love to hear from you. So tell us about your relationship. Tell us about the control that you have maybe employed or see somebody employing, and how mean that whole control dynamic can be. We'd love to hear your stories. You can leave a comment below or ask a question, but you can also email your questions at sanyabari.com. Love and light from our hearts to yours. We can't wait to see you again.
Thank you.